And so now we're going to talk about configuring the PCCM clone to work with Primo's cars from 1997 until 2003. In 2003 model year, they moved to MOS. So if you have a car from 1997 to 2002, it will be Primo's. Okay, so there's a lot of extra stuff here that you can use if you want to. To begin, the first cable is for your microphone. This will feed the unit when you are making a call. You get better clarity. Okay, so the microphone usually is mounted on the A-pillar. Some people will mount it on the factory location, which is on the gauge cluster. There's a little bitty oval vent, and that's where a lot of people will put their microphones for this kind of thing. All right, so now we have video inputs to deal with. You'll see it says CVBS, that stands for Composite Video Baseband Signal. You have two of them. So you can have, if you wanted to have two game consoles, you can feeding the unit, you can, or you can have another media player or whatever. Then you have two audio inputs as well. So you have two video inputs and two audio inputs. So you can see there, they are labeled, thankfully. Okay, I'm not going to use that for my car, but if you ever had a need, they're there. I know a lot of the kids love to have a video player or a game console going down the road and they could play it, kind of thing. This will allow you an additional video output. So if you had a monitor that was being shared by a sibling while they played the game together, this is the way you do that, okay? And you could feed that to the back seat or wherever. Most people in Porsche cars are not going to fool with this stuff, but it's there if you want it. Okay, and now we have a sub output. Okay, this is basically a low frequency output. And they also give you an amp trigger. But what they don't give you is a constant power. Now, if you're running a sub that needs a lot of power, I advise you to run a dedicated power line from the fuse box or from, a lot of people do it directly from the battery. Another option is the telephone connector. That is the cell phone connector that was intended for the integrated Porsche genuine cell phone. Most people didn't get that as an option. They use their own personal cell phones, but they always had the plug, and on that plug it has a constant power, 12 volts, a switch power, 12 volts, as well as a ground, okay? And you can use that. A lot of people use that connector for their their radar detector, okay? The next is the SIM card slot here, and this cable is for data SIMs, for setting up your wireless hotspot for Wi-Fi. And there's another one right there. So either or can work. This will make it a little more convenient because you can, route it out to the center cubby or on the side of the passenger footwell, and it will work. Okay, here's probably your most important RCA outputs, and these are your preamp audio outputs. On analog cars, we are connecting it to the ISO connector like this. Okay? The next is you want to connect you have to kind of map it from the ISO connector here. The green solid and the green with the black stripe, that cable runs out, comes right here. Then what you do is you connect it to the other 2-pin cable that is colored red and white, okay? So it's going to look like that. You can trace those lines. So basically what's happening here on the socket C1 is you have 5 pins. Technically 6 pins, but 5 pins are dedicated to audio. There's one pin that also gives you another amp trigger, just another additional thing they do. But basically you get 4-channel audio. So 4 pins are for positive preamp output and 1 pin is for the ground. Okay, so what they're doing here is they're looping this so that you get channel 3 and 4 to the amp. The amps needed 4 channels audio and then they outputted 6 channels. A lot of people didn't know that. But yeah, and they basically just duplicate two of the channels at the amp level, so that if you have the amp in the front, you're going to get the door speakers. Okay. If you have the bass system analog, you're just dealing with this B connector, ISO connector, and it will be brown. Ironically, B, brown, but this is 4-channel speaker level output. You will not be using this connector, because if you have a bass car that doesn't have the door speakers, just 4 speakers on the dash and at the back seats, then you will not have a yellow connector. You shouldn't. You'll have the brown connector here, and of course the black connector is reserved for power. Okay? All right, so you're going to see a few other lines here. You don't do anything with these. These are just a part of the system. Key 1 and key 2 is for steering control. I assume that has a lot to do with the backup camera system. You also have a pink on analog cars. You have to either run a line from the backup light at the tail. I mean, you're going to be running lines back there for the backup camera. They give you a 20-foot cable for the video signal that goes to the backup camera. You also have to have a reverse trigger, and that could be a 12-volt signal coming from the backup light, the reverse lights, or the better way of doing it is connecting to the gearbox module, which has a blue and black line. It should have, I will find out. But based on the schematics, that's what it is. It's blue with a black stripe. And that is the reverse trigger. So when you're putting the car in reverse, the taillights come on. Okay, so that's where you connect this. Okay, pretty much that's it. There's one other cable, if we're talking about backup cameras, that you'll want to know about. You'll wonder, this is not labeled. This is a 12-volt switched output as well. Okay, so the backup camera only needs one 12-volt line. It doesn't need a constant and a switch. It just needs one. It doesn't use much power. So the idea is that you connect this line, and to the long cable they give you for the backup camera, you connect this positive to the camera, and then you ground the camera comes with this cable right here. It's a little hard to see, but this is the cable right here. This will be at the rear bumper, and you can see you have a positive and a negative. You ground the negative that has a black stripe, and then that red connects to this red, okay? And they give you a cable that goes about 20 foot, that goes all the way back from the back tail lights all the way back to the head unit, okay? So there you go. That's how you connect it and get it ready for analog cars. Next, we're going to talk about configuring this unit for most base cars.